Welcome to Blueprint Boost for Contractors, the podcast that's your go-to source for unlocking the secrets to successful marketing, gaining valuable insights, and growing your contracting business with less stress. Your host is David Brooks, and he's thrilled to be your guide on this journey. As a seasoned expert in the contracting industry, David understands the challenges you face. That's why each episode is crafted to provide you with actionable strategies and proven blueprints to boost your business to new heights.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, David Brooks, powered by Contractor Rhino, your go-to source for all your digital marketing and accounting needs for the trades. For this episode, we have a guest with us, and I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Hey, good morning, David. Good to be with you. My name is Harlan Hammack. I'm a business coach, leadership coach, working a lot with commercial contractors. And that's why I was so excited to be on the show. So looking forward to our conversation.
Nice. Excellent. Well, we're great to have you. We appreciate you joining us for this episode. And could you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, so for about 30 years, I'm giving away my age now. I hope that's okay. For about 30 years, I was a management consultant, organizational change and business transformation. So working a lot with companies that were undergoing some major change. It could have been a merger acquisition situation. It could be a software implementation. It could be a restructuring of the business. I would go in and help the leaders, the managers, CEOs, help them understand the impacts of those changes, help them communicate the change to their employees, and then help them lead their employees through that change so they're as productive after as they were before. So I did that for about 30 years. That meant getting on a plane every Monday morning and flying home every Friday and stuff. And I got tired of the travel. And so I told my wife, when I'm done with this project, I just want to kind of hang around town for a little bit. She goes, well, we can't just sit here. You got to go do something, right? So I started networking, and I met a lot of commercial contractors in the networking group I was in. And they were suffering from a lot of the same issues that a lot of these bigger clients were having. So I started working with them, coaching them, helping them be better leaders, better communicators, helping them find that courage to lead. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, right? That courage that it takes. And so that's what I've been doing for about the last 7 or 8 years, is working with a variety of different companies, but a lot of them happen to be commercial contractors, to help them improve their business, improve their revenue, their profit margins, and cash flow. That's one of the big things we've been working on lately, is cash flow.
Excellent. That's a great background. So you mentioned working on cash flow as of recently, and just why is like cash flow so critical for contractors? And then, what's the most common challenges that, a commercial contractor can run into with cash flow?
Yeah, absolutely. An author, favorite author of mine is Mike Michalowicz. I don't know if you've heard him. He's got a bunch of books out. Fix This Next. Be Different. What's the other one? Is Clockwork, How to Run Your Business so it runs like clockwork. Great guy. And he has a saying that the biggest problem most business owners have is that they don't know what their biggest problem is. Right? They know something's wrong, but they're not sure exactly what it is. So they try everything that they can. And a lot of them revert back to the old saying, just work harder, right? Put in the effort, work harder, work longer hours and stuff, and everything will work itself out. Bring in more revenue and everything will work itself out. And that's not always the case. Usually it's not a revenue problem. The money is coming in. The problem is it's going places you have no idea. So you don't have any money left over, that net profit, to reinvest in the company and to do all the things you want to do. You need a certain amount of cash coming in and cash on hand to do the things, buy the materials, hire new employees, buy new vehicles, right? Update your tools and everything like that. You need that money. And a lot of businesses are fine at bringing the money in, but then it's just out of their hands, right? And they end up having nothing. So what we look at when I'm working with my clients is we look at kind of what their current status is, right? Knowing your numbers is important. Every business owner should know their numbers. They should be able to quote them off the top of their head. So what is your annual revenue? What is your cost of goods sold? A lot of that is you're paying too much to either produce or deliver those products or services. So how can we get those, dialed in and stuff? That gives you your gross profit. Most of my clients, I try to get them at like a 40 to 50% gross profit. because that gives them the money then that they can go and pay their other expenses and have some money left over at the end to reinvest, get bonuses and things like that. So we look at it, we just kind of break it down. What's working, what's not working? What do we have to do to get this dialed in? I work with a company out of Dallas that will do a full financial review, right, of your business. And then they'll compare the business to the industry averages. So if the industry says cost of goods is approximately 20% of gross revenue, then we look at yours. What is yours at? If your cost of goods is higher than that, what do we need to do to bring that down? If your gross profit should be X amount, what do we need to do to get it up to that level? So we use that as kind of a baseline and say, what do we need to do to get this, back up to or above the average in the industry? And a lot of times, simply shining a light on those numbers and saying, here's something that's way below. Why is this so far, below the industry average? You start finding out that there's maybe processes that aren't being followed in the business. Things are slipping through the cracks. One client that I love to brag about, Michael, we started off looking at their accounts receivable, and their accounts receivables through the roof, right? So we're trying to figure out why. Why is that so high? What do we need to do to get it down? And we traced it all the way back to the guys out in the field. Now he's a commercial electrician, and his guys out in the field would finish a job, but they wouldn't complete the job in their tracking system that they use, which means if it's not completed, they can't invoice, right? So that was like 14 days, something like that. We got that down to 2 to 3 days. When they complete a job, all the paperwork is done. POs are in, notes are in the system, photos, whatever they need to do, signatures are gotten 2 to 3 days. So we got that way down. Then we turned around and said, what about internally? Well, the invoice wasn't going out for another 10 days, right? So already you're like, 20 days out before they even send an invoice. And then they're giving their customers, 30 to 45 days to pay. And of course, that always drags into 60 days past due, 90 days past due. So we really focused the light on exactly what was happening, make sure the internal processes were working, and then we set up processes for communicating with the customers to make sure that they started paying on time. And now I forget what it was. It's something crazy, like 30%. AR was like 30% of the we past due, 30% past due, 60, 90 days. We got that down to, I think, 3% now. And that's where they've been hovering. So really made some great improvements, but it's just focusing on those things, dialing them in, get them where you want them, and then looking at the next thing. What else can we do to improve this stuff?
That's amazing. That's really good. Digging into that information, finding out what those pain points are, and then implementing those improvements and making those adjustments, because you're trying to undo the bottlenecks that are there. And that's, great on your part for being able to kind of, knock that percentage down because that's huge, being able to correct and make those changes, will drastically improve the workflow and operations.
Yep.
And in lieu of that, a follow-up question would be, how can, commercial contractors plan for those seasonal fluctuations with cash flow as well?
Yeah, the seasonal stuff hits a lot of people. Now, my guys are more on the commercial side, so it's fairly steady. In fact, Michael, the guy I was just talking about, they've got work booked out through 2025 already. It's out there waiting for them, right? It's already booked in. I think you need to look at the products and services you're offering and see if there's seasonality to a lot of those things. Well, if you've got something that's very big during spring and summer, what can you do for the fall and winter? Is there some other product or service you could offer during that time? A lot of the contractors that I work with, they offer annual contracts, right? We'll come and do maintenance on it periodically, and that gets them a chance to get into the person's house or the business and say, well, hey, while I'm here, I noticed this. Could we take care of that for you? Right. So they can kind of upsell on those things. But yeah, that's looking at what you currently do and how well those products and services sell. And if there is some seasonality to it, what else can you do to kind of tweak that to bring it into those other seasons? One thing I worked with Michael on, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule.
Yep.
Right. This guy says, okay, 80% of productivity comes from 20% of your employees, something like that. 80% of results come from 20% of your effort. So we looked at it on his business. 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers or clients. And 80% of profit comes from 20% of your products and services.
Mhm.
So if you do some analysis, put all your customers in line, rank them according to how much, they've spent with you over the last year, draw that line at the 20%. This is our total revenue. And it's about 20% of our customers. And then the products and services that we offer, here are the most profitable ones. And here's the 20% that really make up the majority of our profit. If you focus on the 20% of customers and 20% of products and services, you could triple your business
Mhm.
because you're not spending your time on those things that nobody's buying, or you're not spending a lot of time on those things that aren't profitable for you. You
Mhm.
still have access to them. If somebody really wants something, of course you're going to sell it to them, but you don't want to spend a lot of time marketing, right, and
Mhm.
pushing those things because they don't bring in the revenue. You
Mhm.
don't you don't want to cater to these customers because that's not where your bread and butter is. It's
Mhm.
that 20%. That tells you what your customer avatar is. Focus on them. Get more customers like them, and
Mhm.
you'll be fine. You'll be set.
I love that. I mean, that resonates with me. It's like, so well where I've had client requests and, come in and, hey, we want to push this product, we want to push this service. And it's okay, I'm willing to, do it and put it on the website and create the content and things around it. But when I'm analyzing it and I'm looking at how many people are actually looking for that service, it's not a lot. And sometimes you can get pigeonholed just trying to push something that nobody there's not a demand there for it, and you can kind of take your foot off the gas of the other things like you said that are really driving in revenue for you, that you're overlooking your customer avatar because you may be excited about offering this service but it may not be a need, so it's a difference and you have to be able to table that.
Exactly. Yeah, that old saying, the riches are in the niches, right?
Yes.
Find that niche and fill that niche, whatever it is. You're right. You spend a lot of time working on these little tiny projects and stuff like that for customers that you'll probably never see again. And you take your guys away to where they're not available to do this big project that's come up, that's in your wheelhouse. You know you can do it, but you don't have the resources then, right? Because you're busy doing these other things. Find that one or two things that you do really well. You do them better than anybody else, and focus on that. Become the expert in that, so that when anybody thinks, "Hey, we need this," this is the guy we're going to call, right? That's what you want to do.
Yeah, that's amazing is when you look at it, because it could be really overlooked as like, hey, we have our guys on this job, over here, but then something big comes in and you're like, man, like, but we're we're
Yeah.
kind of stuck right now because we're over here, but like really, where does the business need to be at? And it's probably with, the job that's potentially just coming in that's really going to be your bread and butter.
Yep, exactly. And I had a guy a year or so ago, a couple years ago, that situation exactly. So we ended up hiring a subcontractor to do the work under
Mm,
his name. Well, they went in there and messed everything up.
mm,
So now he's got a bad reputation because of those guys. He had to then go in and fix it, right, on his own time, out of his own pocket, basically, not really making any money because this contractor took the majority of the money from that project. So he ended up losing a ton of money just because of that. So you don't want to get in the situation where you have to, bring somebody else in to do this stuff for you, right? So
mm,
focus on what you do best, work with your team, maybe have one of your team lead the job and have the subcontractors come in, so you have somebody there looking out for your best interest. But you want to make sure that you have the guys working on those top customers, the top products and services and top customers every time.
mm. I 1,000% agree with you on that. So, what other tips do you have that you would recommend really analyzing and looking at as we're heading into 2025?
I'm a big systems guy.
Hmm.
I love systems, right? Step by step type procedures in your business. To me, they're like recipes. We just came out of Thanksgiving, so I'm thinking about food. If I have a recipe for pecan pie and I follow the recipe, I have a great pecan pie. And I give you the recipe and 10 other people the recipe. If we all follow it, we have 10 or 12 identical pecan pies, right? If somebody else comes up with banana bread, okay, only one of two things happened. Either they didn't follow the recipe they were given, or we gave them the wrong recipe. Those are the only two things that could happen, right? Same thing in your business. Have procedures you want your folks to follow. If something is really critical to your business, Write it down, mark it out step by step, exactly what you want them to do and how you want them to do it. And then teach all your employees to follow that so that everybody's doing things the same way. It does a couple of things for you. Number one, it gets to be a habit. Everybody starts doing it all the same way. You can guarantee the service or the product because it's being done consistently the same way for everybody. If, heaven forbid, one of your employees, one of your guys out in the field gets hurt and somebody needs to fill in for them, they can come in and see, okay, it looks like he's up to this step. I know where to go from here. They don't have to tear everything out and start from scratch because they're doing it a different way. Everybody's following the same procedure, right? So it gives you that consistency and quality of the known. One thing I came up with is my ROSCO framework, RSSCO. It's an acronym. It stands for the result that you're after, the strategy to achieve that result, the system or the steps to implement that strategy. C is the control points or the checkpoints to make sure you're on track, and then the outcome. All right. So what we do is we sit down, one of my clients, and they say, well, we want to, I don't know, improve gross revenue. We want to bring in X revenue. Fine. That's the result you're after, right? And here's what that extra revenue can be used for and stuff like that to know what the result is and how it's going to help your business, keep you motivated. There's multiple strategies to achieve that, right? One of them could be increasing your product's pricing, right? That's going to give you more revenue in. You may lose customers, right? But that's one of the risks you take. But that's one strategy to do it. You could also look at adding another product line or adding more customers to your customer base. Those are all strategies for improving revenue. Pick one of those strategies and then come up with the systems. What steps do I need to follow in order to implement this? And then how am I going to measure that, those control points? How am I going to measure this to make sure I'm on track to actually achieve that result that I'm after? And then the last thing, the outcome, those are the unintended or unexpected result of achieving your goal. Mm-hmm. Like I said, if you increase your prices, yeah, that's going to bring in more revenue and you don't have to do anything extra for it, right? It doesn't cost you anything. It hits your bottom line immediately. But you raise prices, you could lose customers. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a calculation you can go through to see at this profit margin, here's how many customers I can afford to lose and break even, right? Mm-hmm. So you look at it and you say, okay, if losing a couple customers is going to get me that result, is it worth it? And if it's worth it, go for it. If it's not, go back to your strategies and pick a different strategy and go through the process there. What else could I do, right? How else could I approach this? So we go through that process every time. With anytime we're making a big decision with my clients, we look at that. What's the result you're after? The strategy to achieve that, the steps, how are you going to checkpoint? And then what are those outcomes? And is it worth it in the end to do it? And I think if you keep those things in mind and you actually go through and get your process together and follow it and stuff like that, you're going to come to the results every single time.
Amazing. Good solid advice. Definitely that contractors can look at, think about the implementation, really getting systems and processes in place as we're heading into the new year, get off to a fresh, clean start, exactly. And really just getting organized, right? Looking at everything, looking at cash flow, looking at what's going out, billing, customers paying on time, and that's really huge too because I was we were doing a consultation and that was one of the pain points that contractor expressed on a consultation was, hey, look, we have these these jobs that are floating out there that we're just like we're kind of hamstrung right now because we haven't got paid.
Right. And then a lot of times that same customer is coming back and saying, hey, we have a new job for you.
Yeah.
You don't want to turn down the work, but you haven't been paid for this yet. Mm-hmm. You've got to stand firm. You have to stand firm. If you allow them to go 60, 90 days past due, they're going to expect that that's the norm. Mm-hmm. And it can't be. You have to make sure. So we put in processes again with these guys that at this date, an email goes out. At this date, a phone call is made. At this date, the owner of the company calls, right? It's like, no, this is important. I need to get paid. I can't afford to do this. The other thing is the pay when paid type contracts. I don't know if some of the guys have had to deal with that. It's like if I'm a subcontractor, the general contractor says, "Well, I'll pay you when I get paid." Mm-hmm. Well, hang on a minute. Mm-hmm. I'm contracting with you. If mm-hmm. I do everything I said I'm going to do, get it all done on time, on budget, I expect to be paid when I'm done.
Mhm.
I don't want to get paid when you get paid. If you screw something up, you may not get paid for years. I
Mhm.
can't wait.
Yep.
So it's tough. I know there's a lot of the pay when paid contracts out there and stuff. Try not to get involved in those because a lot of times that could be your downfall. I My client Michael that I'm dealing with, he's still working to try to get money out of these guys that have owed him for things that done a year or so ago, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, try not to get involved in those if you can avoid it at all.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like you don't want them to think that's the norm, right?
Mm.
And it's so easy for people, customers to think like, oh, okay, like, I didn't pay them I paid them 90 days later, and it's like, oh, okay, like that must be fine.
Yeah,
And then in their mind, they're always thinking 90 days.
exactly. No, you got to jump on it. Let them know these are, and it should be noted on your invoicing.
Mhm.
These are our terms. You can offer a discount on the terms if they pay in advance or they pay early. You may give them a couple percent, off or something like that. If it's past due, let them know. Maybe there's a fee, an administrative fee for having it go past due. So anything you can do to try to get them to pay on time, right? I think is critical. And I hate discounting. Now, there's a difference between saying if you pay me on time, you can get a little bit of a discount. There's other times where we'll go out to say a residential customer, right? And the residential customers say, "Well, you're way too expensive."
Mhm.
You want to say, "Well, tell you what, I'll knock 10% off." Don't do that.
Mhm.
Don't do that. When you offer to me, when you offer a discount,
Mhm.
you're basically telling them, I was trying to pull a fast one on you and overbill you, right? And you caught me. So here's my real pricing." You're
Mhm.
telling them no. I asked for this, but really this is what I'm willing to take. Don't discount.
Mhm.
Instead, offer more value.
Mhm.
I can't really give you a discount, but what I can do is while I'm here, I'll do X for you. You know, talk about the value you can add. Talk about, hey, I can't offer you a discount, but what I can do is guarantee our service and the quality of our service.
Mhm.
And if it's not right, I will come back personally and fix it for you. You
Mhm.
know, do something like that. Talk about the value you add, talk about the quality of the product and services. Do not badmouth your competitors.
Mhm.
I tell you, we were putting new cabinets in our house a couple
Mhm.
years back. This guy came in to give us a quote, everything, did all the measurement. And then for the next half hour, 45 minutes, he talked about how bad his competitors were.
Mhm.
It's like, I'm not going to do business with you. I know nothing about you. All I know is your thoughts on these other people.
Mhm.
He's telling them how bad they were, how bad quality. They use foreigners to do their. I mean, he just anything he could do to badmouth these people. It's like, no, I'm not going to do any business with you. Don't badmouth your competitors. Refuse to talk about them. Only talk about what value you bring, the quality that they can expect from you. If they say, yeah, it's a little more expensive, well, quality, you're going to pay for it. And I know somebody of your, distinguished this is not going to, go with the cheapest available. You want quality and service. That's what we have to offer. And I personally guarantee that it will be done on time and blah, blah, blah. Do whatever you can, but focus on quality, focus on the service and the value.
I agree. The quality service, and really just standing behind your work and standing behind, what you're going to do and what you're going to accomplish while you're there is going to go a long way instead of discounting and then the customer starts penny pinching and,
Mhm.
they may wind up, back in a position where they're at square one because they picked the cheaper job, it wasn't done right. Now they're trying
Right.
to, get it fixed. And then that becomes a hassle for you because, now they put those, anxieties or problems or worries on you because like, oh, I should have went with you in the first place, but then now I'm wary. And so you definitely want to make sure you stand firm on your ground of doing really good work. And if it's not done right, we're going to come in and make it right.
Absolutely.
Mhm. So we're going to pivot now. Tell us about the podcast.
The podcast. You can see a poster back here. The podcast is called The Courage to Lead. What does it take to be a courageous leader? Where do you find the courage to lead? Where do you find the courage to walk away from the safety or the comfort zone of that 9 to 5 job to start your own business? Right? Where do you find the courage to write a book and put yourself out there, for criticism and critique? That's the type of conversations I have. And I've done 250 podcast episodes. Um, I've had a lot of authors on there. Mike Michalowicz was one of the authors on there. Had a lot of CEOs, CFOs, new entrepreneurs, talking about their struggle. Had one guy, an NFL player, who, after leaving the NFL, 6-year, career, started his own construction company, and then ended up going bankrupt because of his arrogance, thinking, "Oh, I'm superior. I can do anything. I can do it better than anybody," and stuff like that. Got himself in trouble, lost everything, and ended up having to work as a janitor for like $8 an hour until he could work his way out of that. And now he's a published author. He's a speaker, motivational speaker, and everything like that. But where do you find the courage to keep going after something like that? Where do you find the courage to say, "Hey, this is what I want, and I know I can make it happen." And how do you do that? Where do you pull that courage from? Your family, from friends, from some other sports figure? Where do you get that? Where does that come from? So we have some great conversations. Yeah, so I love it. So I took a little hiatus, about 2-year hiatus. My wife and I were digital nomads. We've been roaming the country, back and forth across the U.S. about 4 times, back through Canada. We were down in Costa Rica for a month, just loving life and living right after the pandemic, right? Decided to get out of town and just kind of explore and live life. I'm back now. And so the podcast is starting back up, and it'll be launched again full in January. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, amazing information. Can you let the people know where to find you at?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my website is ib4e-coaching.com. So the letter I, the letter B, the number 4, the letter E, -coaching.com. That's my website. The podcast, The Courage to Lead, is found on any of the podcast outlets that you have. I'd like to offer maybe to your contractor clients, I'm doing a special series of The Courage to Lead, talking just to contractors, commercial electricians, commercial contractors. Where did they find the courage to step out? How did they decide to go out and start their own business, right? Love to learn about what they're doing. So any of your listeners that would like to be on the podcast, let's talk about it. Let's see what that might look like. And they can do that. Reach out to me on LinkedIn or through my website, or just schedule a time to talk. I've got a website set up it's www.timewithcoach.com. And that goes directly to my calendar. Find, just a little 20-minute blob. We'll jump on the call and see what that podcast might look like, and yeah, make it happen.
Excellent. Excellent. Listeners, please take them up on that offer. We would love to be able to hear you guys on the platform and to really be able to talk about that journey. It's always amazing. I know I always have a really good time, talking and hearing about, different stories and different paths of, starting out and the middle and now where you're currently at. So really great information to be had coming on and really just talking about a variety of different things.
Absolutely. I'd love to have you on the podcast, David. So we're definitely going to talk about that. Love to have you on there.
Yeah, we would love to. I would love to be on there myself
Cool.
too as well.
Very cool.
And that'd be amazing.
Awesome.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. Make sure you tune into the next one. Please keep in mind to get your business right as we go into 2025. If you need any help or assistance, please feel free to reach out, Contractor Rhino, and we'll look for you the next time. Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Blueprint Boost for Contractors. We hope you found today's insights and strategies valuable for your contracting business. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and please leave us a review. Your feedback helps us bring content that truly matters.